Hey guys, what's up? Leighandnari here and welcome to another video.
Today we will be discussing one very personal topic.
To her.
To me. To us. Well, you were part of it anyway. So
only because I had to be.
Many of you have asked me to speak about my ordeal during the pregnancy. I know I've said it so many times.
The pregnancy.
The pregnancy.
The pregnancy.
I did not have a smooth sailing time. Is that a word? Yeah, never mind. So I really had a really terrible pregnancy, and so we're gonna speak about one part of it today. It is quite long. It wasn't the whole course of the pregnancy, but it was long enough.
We're gonna break her trauma down into multiple different stages and videos for you so you can watch it in chunks.
I understand.
Because it was that long.
It started quite nicely, actually. The pregnancy started nice. For the first 9 weeks...
That's how babies are made.
For the first 9 weeks...
It starts nicely and then it goes downhill.
It didn't go downhill.
Come on, so tell us.
I'm telling you, I'm trying to say
God,
it, but you're
so long.
joking, yeah. So the first 9 weeks went quite well. No big issue, no cravings, no morning sicknesses, nada.
I mean, she eats a lot of weird things anyway, like mayonnaise with everything.
I love mayonnaise. Anyway, so after the 9th week, we were away on holiday.
Let me put this into context for you. We had a very big event that we attended and we worked within. And I was actually fortunate enough to speak at that event as well. And we had a holiday planned.
It's my birthday.
It's my birthday. It's my birthday. So we had a holiday planned, but we had to move it because this event was very important to us, especially as I was speaking, obviously. Couldn't do the event without me. No, I'm joking. But we moved it because we wanted to be at this event. So we did the event, and then the next day we flew out on holiday and we went for some sun and had a good holiday. Nari had a few weird cravings.
Not
weird cravings, but
I did not want to eat meat. I had meat aversion.
Oh yeah, which is weird because she loves meat. Which is even weirder because now she's doing a vegan challenge. I can't keep up with her. You know, guys, I can relate. Have no idea what goes on in there.
What?
1 minute she wants meat, then she doesn't want meat. No, I'm joking. I understand when you're pregnant, things are just a bit ski-whiff. So we ended up going on holiday. We flew out, enjoying the sun.
Had a good time.
Didn't want meat. And yeah, it was all good. But you had some morning sickness that
not a big deal. It was just like a bit of
not a big deal compared to the hyperemesis, but it wasn't a big deal because you'd feel sick for like an hour,
and then I felt better.
Run into the bathroom, throw up, and then be done with, and we'd go about our day.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that actually. And then what happened? So our last day there, we decided to go to a nice dinner. We found this nice little restaurant, and we decided to go. And I started to feel unwell. First of all, I thought it was food poisoning. So the flight was moved forward. So we were meant to fly later on, and we moved it forward.
Coincidentally.
Luckily,
Coincidentally.
And so I started to feel sick, thinking, oh my God, I'm having food poisoning. I want to go back home right now. Because I had food poisoning before and it was horrible. And so we're at the airport. Obviously, I threw up all the way to the airport.
That isn't quite what happened. Let me reverse a second. So we brought the flights forward just by pure coincidence. It was meant to be the next day, like midday afternoon.
Yeah, we were early
morning. For whatever reason, you know, her brother works for an airline. He was helping us out, and we just decided to bring these forward. But it was a really weird time. It was like 4 in the morning or something, which meant because where we were located, it was quite a distance from the airport, and it was like in the middle. So it was either that airport or that airport. But we ended up leaving at around 12 or 1 in the morning. So we were also traveling with a friend of ours. Myself and our friend were on the balcony, and we came back into the living room area, and Nari's like passed out on the sofa, just saying, well, I don't really feel well. So like, okay, maybe she ate something funny and she's going to be okay. So the taxi comes, we get in the taxi. Nari gets car sick anyway, so don't ever be in the back of a car with Nari because it's just a problem.
I don't sit at the back, I just can't.
Especially when you're in, you know, an international country with maybe a slightly older car, whatever, you feel it more. So she's in this car And just the whole way there, she's just looking paler and paler and paler. And until eventually she's like, we have to stop. So we told the driver to pull over.
Yeah.
She throws her guts out on the side of the road. We get back in the car, we keep moving, we get to the airport. So we're at the airport, and then...
I'm like, I need to put myself together because they won't let me on the plane. Yeah, and then you have to queue up for me, so to register the flight. I'm running to the bathroom every 2 seconds. And then we are about to board. And I was feeling sick before that. So I went to the bathroom, threw my guts out, came back in. I was like, okay, I can hold it. Because we had to stop over at Munich. And so I was like, okay, let's get over with. We're going to get home soon. In the next 5 hours, we'll be in England and I'll be better. That's what I was hoping.
And also, I think because our healthcare professional had also said, look, if you feel sick at any point, just make sure you get to a hospital. So in our head, we were like, okay, we're not that far from home in the grand scheme of things. Yes, we're in a different country, but in a few hours, we'll be landing in the UK. We can go to our hospital and see our people, the people that are following Nari. So we eventually got through the checkout process.
I felt better for some reason.
We passed through security and did all that, but like she's just, I feel sick. And normally, you know, if you throw up, you feel sick, and then it's kind of like pass and I feel better now. This wasn't happening. And we were trying to find every sort of drink you could get just to settle it, any type of maybe dry food, whatever, lemonade, sparkling water, this, that and the other.
Nothing worked.
Nothing worked. So she's kind of sitting on the side. They call for the flight. We go to get on the flight. Then they pulled her aside.
Okay, so let's
don't
clarify.
Use nations here.
We're not using nations, but I'm not a British citizen, so I hold a different passport.
What?
I'm not a British citizen.
No way.
So I'm
you married me for my passport?
Yes. No. I'm a courier of a different national, and so they pulled me aside, and I'm starting to get frustrated. I was like, why are you putting me aside?
True.
But I got through. We got through.
Yeah.
I started pointing fingers. She's like,
So
why
anyway,
don't you search it?
She found it well, because I think the whole time she was thinking, if they see that I'm not feeling well, they're not going to let me get on this flight, because the worst thing you want is a sick person in the sky, because then they have to make alternative arrangements, etc. So she's like, I just need to firm it. So she staggered to the flight. They let her on, and we sat down. They shut the door, and I tell you, as soon as this plane rolled 1 meter, this girl started throwing up non-stop for the whole flight. I mean, I don't know how many, if you've ever been on a flight with someone who's sick, I can't tell you how many bags she used. And it was because it was so early in the morning, everyone was sleeping, the lights were off, and all you could hear was her throwing up in a very bad state. And it was getting worse and worse and worse, because she wasn't eating anything and couldn't eat anything, and it was getting to a point so it was food, then it was, you know, whatever comes out for bile, and then by the end of the flight it became blood. So thankfully, because we had flown with a specific airline, we had a connecting flight in Munich, and by the time we were going to land or getting close to Munich, I said to them, look, she needs to be seen by a medical professional. So they gave me 2 options, which was either A, we can have a wheelchair waiting when you land, and we can walk her to the clinic in the airport, but we don't know what terminal we're gonna land at, so we don't know how far the walk's gonna be. Or you can have an ambulance and a doctor waiting on the tarmac when we land, but if you do that, you're gonna have to pay. So obviously, like a good husband, I said, cool, no problem. I've got MasterCard for that. Let's get the doctor, get the ambulance, let's do it. Because by this point, honestly, my fear was, I honestly thought she had food poisoning, because I've seen her have bad food poisoning before. I think perhaps because she's diabetic as well, it's a lot worse, and it's hard for her to bounce back. So in my head, I'm thinking, sugar, she's got food poisoning, and the more she's retching and throwing up, the more potential danger the fetus, the baby, you know, whatever it is, embryo, whatever it is at that point, has. So I was like, we need to land. And I tell you, 5 minutes into this flight, after takeoff,
are we there yet?
her head is keeled over on the seat, and all she's saying is, how long, are we there yet? Anyway, like by the time we land, so, and I know I'm doing most of the talking, but she probably can't recall most of this.
I can't recall most of the things.
By the time we land, they let everyone off the plane, which I have no idea why they didn't take her off first. Doctor comes on, ambulance driver comes, ambulance tech people come on, and they try and help her up, and she's basically keeled over, like she's dead man walking, like she's passed out. Not passed out, but she's
half conscious,
staggering off. They kind of help her down the stairs, get her into an ambulance, and yeah, then there's police on the tarmac as well, and they're in the ambulance and whatnot. And I'm just like, why are we not moving? Let's go. And then the police start asking me 101 questions. Oh,
how are you related?
How are you related? What's her name? Where's your passport? Where's her passport? Why is her name different in her passport to your passport? Why? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I get into an slight altercation with these police officers who are very armed and dangerous. And then the ambulance is just not going anywhere. So I start saying to the ambulance, hey, look, when are we going to move? They're asking for insurance documents. You know, where's this? Where's that? Blah, 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 blah. And eventually the ambulance driver is just like, oh, you need to pay. It's like, okay, let me pay then. So he whips out a chip and pin device from the ambulance and says, okay, and I pay however much it was. I can't remember, 150 euros or something. And then, yeah, and I'm still at this point arguing with the police officers at the same time. And what they were arguing about, they were looking for her Schengen visa. And the ambulance also were looking for the EU travel card. So if you still have it, keep it if you're within the EU, because it's very, very helpful. We found out the hard way. But we didn't have it because
we were outside of the EU.
We weren't in the EU, and we weren't planning to be in the EU. We were just connecting in the EU. So this is why the police had a problem, and this is why the ambulance people had a problem. And we didn't have that card, which is why I paid in the end. But the police basically turned around to me and said, hey, look, well, I'm going to keep her passport. You have to come to the office in the airport and collect it when she's better.
Yeah.
So one thing led to another. We fixed the problem. The problem was they thought she didn't have a Schengen visa. She had a Schengen visa. It's just she's so well travelled. She has 1 million Schengen visas in all different passports.
I have 2 passports because one was like maxed out in pages.
One was maxed out and she had a new one on her and it didn't have the correct Schengen visa in it. Anyway, so they eventually let her go. We get in this ambulance. We drive. It feels like we're driving for miles in the middle of nowhere. We end up at this clinic/hospital in their A&E. And one thing just leads to another.
Yeah.
So.
And by the way, I can't even recall the whole story because by this time I think I was completely out.
Yeah, like you were not
out.
good. And then they moved her to a different. They'd send me down to administration, say you need to fill in your details because they need a record of who she is and who I am. Because now they started to talk about paying. So, which is fine. I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. Just fix her. And sounds like a Coldplay song. Fix her. And then they move her to another floor. And then eventually she gets up. And I don't know if you even remember this. She stands up. She's like, I really need the toilet. I was like, okay, let me help you to the toilet. She goes I help her to the toilet. She goes to the toilet. She comes out. And then she comes out and says, oh, I'm bleeding. By this point, I didn't say anything to her. I was like, sugar. It wasn't the word I used. Something definitely has gone wrong. So then, there's all these doctors, etc. And then they move her again. I have no idea what's going on because most of what they're saying is in German. But there was a lot of amazing doctors and nurses. In fact, I still have contact with one of the nurses who treated us when we were there. I message her every now and again. And an incredible clinic. I can't remember the name, but I'd love to give them a shout out on this video for really, helping her and saving her, because it sounds extreme, but apparently hyperemesis is a big deal, and because you can't put fluids back into your own body, and because you're constantly pouring out, you get so dehydrated. I think in extreme cases, like if you didn't have access to the sorts of treatment that we did and that people do in countries like the UK, I don't think it's...
You can actually die.
Yeah, I don't think it's probably gives you great prospects if you don't have that sort of access to medical treatment. So we're forever indebted to them. But long story short, they moved us to another ward. And, I remember one of the nurses saying to me, oh, it doesn't look good because she's throwing up blood and she's bleeding. But then these gynecology doctors came. They took her into a room. We did a scan. The little bugger was moving.
He was fine.
Like 11 weeks. 9
weeks. I stayed for 11.
Like 9-10 weeks.
9-10 weeks, yeah.
Little bugger's just chilling, having the ball. I'm so okay, phew. All good. So that ordeal basically went on. I thought initially I was still thinking food poisoning. I didn't realise there was this thing called hyperemesis. We didn't even realise till we came back to the UK because all the notes, they weren't telling us. They were just really good. They were just
They tried to explain to us as much as they could. I think it's just,
And then 6 days later, she's finally let out. She didn't eat for the first 5 days. The 5th night, I think I had brought, because I was just had to start exploring the area. Oh, by the way, I was sleeping in a bed next to her in the same room. I had no luggage because I left it all on the plane. Well, I took my hand luggage, but I had no check-in luggage. I just left it at the airport. So I basically went and bought a couple t-shirts and stuff. And yeah, I lived in the bed next to her. So I was going out every night to get food. But on the 5th evening, I think I brought some pizza or something. And all of a sudden she perked up and was like, smells good. I want some. And then she just started eating normally. I was like, this is very bizarre. She hasn't eaten for 5 days. No water, no food, nothing. I'm just constantly throwing up. And then
all of a sudden I felt better.
And then all of a sudden, give me food.
And we thought that was the end of the ordeal.
Yeah,
so they're like, oh, you can leave today if you want to, you can stay an extra day. We're like, you know what, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us, but I think it's time to go home. So we go home.
And obviously I paid the bill first.
Yeah, he did pay the bill.
They were like, go to administration and sort it out. Okay.
Well.
That's another story. But actually the EU card thing came in very handy.
It
really amazing stuff in
Let
Germany.
me explain. So what happened? So when he went to administration, they've asked you for the EU card. He said, we have it, but we don't have it with us. And the woman was like, if you can get a picture of it, it would be fantastic. So he calls his sister here in the UK. Thankfully, she has a spare key. So she comes home, does alarm the whole thing, and finds it, takes a picture and sends it to you.
Yep.
So this is how we ended up having it.
So it went from basically being, they said it would have been around
500 euros a night.
500 to 800 euros a night for her treatment, down to like, because of the card, it would cost 50 euros a night. Plus I was paying for my bed in the hospital. So it was like, so nothing, a very small bill in comparison. But thank you, EU. We're leaving now, so it probably doesn't work anymore. But anyway, that's for another video. But so that was that. So we, on the 6th day, I think we jumped in a cab, went to the airport, got on a plane, got home.
And I just started feeling better.
It just felt better.
We thought that's it. It was the end.
Yeah, done.
And then, 12 days later?
The funny thing was, one of the nurses in this German hospital, because we got close with actually all of them for such a short period of time, but she would come in and just rub her arm and be, oh, you know, like after 16 weeks it will get better, after 14 or whatever. And we were like, what's she talking about? No idea. So then we came back. She's good. She's eating all her weird things like mayo and gherkins and all that stuff that you eat.
I didn't eat gherkins. I like lollies.
She likes gherkins anyway. And so a week later, 10 days later, roughly, she starts to feel ill again on a Friday night. And okay, she's like, no, the sensation's coming back, the acid. I'm like, oh no. So basically it started again. And to cut a very long story short, it started again. We went to the hospital. They said, oh, it's just hyperemesis. There's nothing you can do.
Take some anti-sickness pills.
Here's some anti-sickness pills. They gave her a bit of an IV and sent her home and said, oh, it's just a thing. Like, you just got to live with it, basically. So you're like, okay. So we came home. She was throwing up the whole weekend. Come the Sunday, she blacks out at home. We get an ambulance. They do the usual ECGs and stuff. I don't know if anyone's had experience with people passing out, but they always do ECGs. They take her into the hospital, get into A&E, and really nice doctor, but he just says the same thing. He said, hey, look, my wife has hyperemesis. She's a doctor too. It's just one of those things. It's just the beauty of pregnancy.
The beauty of pregnancy. That's like the nightmare of pregnancy.
I don't think anything about this element is beautiful, but you know, obviously she wouldn't change it because we have our son, but he was just like, it's just hyperemesis, like deal with it basically. And then my mum got wind of it, who hadn't come in the ambulance with us, and she's a very experienced nurse. She's an ex-community matron, retired now, but she started questioning this doctor, and he was like, everything's fine, we've checked all the levels, bloody blah blah blah, and it's all good, she's just hyperemesis. So my mum said, oh, like she's type 1 diabetic, have you checked her ketones? And he was like, no, we haven't checked that. I said, he said, well, you should. So they checked them, and then he came back and said, turns out you're gonna stay because her ketone level was 7 or 8 or 9, and it's meant to be no more than 1.5. So basically, ridiculously high.
So basically, my body became acidic. If that makes any more sense.
So that ended up being a 10-day ordeal. She was there 10 days. From ward to ward to ward. They couldn't work out what to do with her. She wasn't far enough along to be in maternity.
What you guys need to understand, why I had to go from ward to ward to ward is I was passing out. So what would happen, I would have this excruciating pain on my chest. And it was the accumulation of the acidity from all the throwing up and the ketones and everything. So there's a little vein or valve or whatever that's attached that's near your heart that causes that sense. It's almost like having a heart attack and being tased at the same time. That's how I kept trying to explain it, and everybody was like,
have you ever been tased?
No. Maybe I did.
So how would you know? Okay.
Well, that's how
what she thinks it would be.
That's how I thought it would be, and it was so painful. And I have high tolerance to pain. Like Lee can tell you, I can sustain a good amount of pain. And the pain was so much that I would literally just pass out.
Yeah, I mean, to watch it was actually
horrible. I think
quite terrifying at times, because you would see, when we understood after the first and second time, we started to understand the pattern of what was happening. So certain things would happen. She would complain about pain. The pain would keep traveling up, and you knew as soon as it got up here, she was going to black out. And every time that would happen, the hospital would raise like the emergency panic alarm. So 10 doctors would all of a sudden be around her. She didn't crash in sense of need CPR or anything.
No, I would just pass out.
When that happens and they sound that alarm, they always bring the crash cart just in case they need to resuscitate, etc., etc. So that basically happened a lot of times in that 10-day period. It happened 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. She kept being moved to acute medicine where they monitor her overnight. I mean, everything was done to her. I felt like I
had
really
my heart checked, my lungs checked, my liver checked, everything checked.
X-rays, scans, echoes.
Anything that you can think of.
There were times she had to be moved into acute medicine because they couldn't understand what was going on, how to control it. Because as well, as I've mentioned and we've mentioned, she also has type 1 diabetes. So they were racking their heads. They didn't know how to manage the diabetes and the hyperemesis and all in the same thing. There was a time she was having arterial bloods taken from her wrist every hour on the hour for 7 hours.
And if you've had that night, it's painful.
She had more bloods taken in the night I've had it taken in my whole life. So she really is a trooper. But that was basically what was going on and happening. You really had to be there. It was like a horror movie, and it really is a horrific thing to witness, and I'm sure a horrific thing to experience. So if anyone in this video, watching this video, has experienced that, we really, really feel for you. And we hope anyone that's pregnant or planning to get pregnant doesn't have to go through this, but it's very hard for someone to comprehend what hyperemesis looks like without experiencing it. We believe, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's just morning sickness. No, it's not morning sickness.
It's like morning sickness with like steroids, but like a big amount of steroids.
Not with steroids, on steroids. Is what she means. Like, it's the way I look at it, it's like having really the worst food poisoning you can ever imagine, just amplified. So it's just non-stop throwing up. I mean, imagine watching someone be sick 25 times a day. They can't consume water. They can't consume any food, any juice, nothing. And because she's type 1 diabetic and all the food was always coming out of her system, her blood sugar was always dropping. So we were trying to maintain her blood sugar so she didn't go into a diabetic coma, but also, manage the hyperemesis and etc., etc. So that basically went on, and there was, a lot of bad stories about the things that were happening in that time in hospital, because we felt often she wasn't getting the treatment she needed. In fact, because of my mum's pull with some of the people that she knows, we managed to get other people from within the hospital to come and see her to make sure she was getting the drugs that she needed, because there was sometimes she wasn't getting what she needed, simple things like IV on the times and the drugs that she was needing. So in the end, you know, we left, she felt fine all of a sudden after 10 days. And then a week later happens again, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, and then it happens again. So it basically happened.
They actually had, that's the funny thing, they actually had a protocol in place for me. So they were like, if this lady comes in, there's a piece of paper that tells them exactly what they need to do in which step. Especially when I was moved to maternity, because I don't know about all the other countries, but here in the UK, you don't go to maternity ward until, was it 19 weeks or?
I think officially 20, but they let you in. Yeah,
but they let me in a bit earlier because of my case. It was quite for the doctors it was fascinating. For me it wasn't. But so then once they had a protocol in place, even though I got used to it, but the throwing up, I don't think you ever get used to it, and it was horrid. So once we moved to maternity and the protocol were in place, I was actually placed in high dependency. Not because I was a drug addict, but it means that there was somebody like 24/7 with me. So I was not left alone for even 1 second, because just couldn't know. And especially that at a certain point, like they kind of knew that he might have to be delivered earlier, but that's a story for another time. Because something else happened. So it went on for so long. I think the last time I was admitted to the hospital for hyperemesis, and actually I was discharged, was the 23rd of December last year.
No, you were discharged on the 24th.
Was it the 24th?
It was Christmas Eve, yeah.
Yeah, 24th.
So she had, I think, 8 hospital admissions for hyperemesis and stayed around 45 nights in hospital, give or with breaks in between. So what would happen, she'd have bouts of it, and then all of a sudden it would go, and then it would come back for a few days, and then it would go, and then so the longest stay was 10 days, the shortest was probably 2 nights, and she was on every anti-sickness, anti-acid drug you could imagine, a lot of drugs they use within chemotherapy as well. And you know, at any one point she would every hour be having top-ups or doses of particular drugs. They had to cycle everything because she was on so much. At times she had
everything.
Yeah, at times she was having morphine as well, a couple times where she was blacking out because the pain was so bad. But yeah, so it was a horrific experience. And I remember the first time we were admitted in the UK. So after Germany, the first time we were admitted for the 10 days, we had an incredible, I think she's classified as a gynecologist, not gynecologist, what do they call them? The baby doctors, obstetrician, She came and sat on her bed when she was first admitted. Her name was Vicky, and she actually ended up delivering Kaysan, our son, which was amazing. But she came and said, Nari's big concern, our concern was, is everything going to be okay with the baby with all this throwing up? Because you're throwing up 24/7, how can they be getting nutrients? And she literally turns to Nari and says, don't worry, they're parasites. They're parasites.
They'll take everything.
They'll take everything they need from you, even if you're throwing up and whatnot. It's not a big deal. It just it's painful for you, but it's fine for them. And actually, they also said it's a sign of a healthy baby, because it's showing that your hormones are very strong. Very strong, and obviously you need the hormones to help develop the baby, etc., etc. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have experienced this, but drugs like cyclazine and
I can't even remember the name.
Metoclopramide and so many different drugs that were being administered and nothing was working. So,
and to make it more simple, one drug I can only have it as a tablet, because if I take it as IV, cyclazine.
Also as an IM. But anyway, that was a little bit that was a little bit into Nari's experience with hyperemesis. Of course, at this point, and through the duration of this in Germany, I was with Nari the whole time. We then flew back.
And you stayed with me the whole course.
Yeah, basically, because even I don't even know how we got away with it, but in the hospital, often I was allowed to stay overnight, and I wasn't meant to be. But I think it's because a couple times they messed up, and one night, the first time we stayed, she had passed out in her bed in the middle of the night, throwing up
So
and she was choking, and another lady on the ward who was an old lady,
another patient,
she went and got help. So I think they were a bit concerned that they struggled to manage her diabetes as well, so they let it slide. But yeah, so
I know it was crazy.
We were with her most of the time. My parents came a lot as well, so we would just take it in turns to make sure she was there and being supported. So, you know, with that said, if you're watching this and you know anyone with hyperemesis, please do what you can to support them, because
I know it's difficult now with COVID. I know it's quite hard, but even the support at home is very important. Like it's not a joke. It's not like you can actually lose your life from it. If you're not getting the right treatment. Some cases are more like I had an extreme case of COVID, of hyperemesis. Thankfully, I don't have COVID, but and it's not because I'm diabetic. Diabetes just complicates it. Hyperemesis, anybody can have it. Actually, what is it? 5% of women during pregnancy gets hyperemesis. It's not widely spoken of, but it's there, and it is important that if you're the partner, please support your pregnant lady and make sure she's well looked after. It's like the process, the whole thing, the whole ordeal is already physically draining. Being pregnant is already physically draining. So imagine the emotional state that you're at if you're just throwing up all the time. I know it's not easy, but it's so important. I am so grateful. I'm grateful for the fact that you work from home, so you're always with me, and that he was always there with me and for me. You've been very supportive, and I'm so grateful for that. And like the whole family was there, and I do appreciate that not everybody will have that sort of support system, but if you have a friend that has it, please be there for them and support them. It's so important.
For sure. And also, if you've suffered with it or you're currently suffering for it, and you know you
I've got
need
so many
support
tips
and whatnot, please feel free to reach out. Nari more than me, because obviously she experienced it. I just witnessed it. You know, she'll get back in touch with you and just help as well. I think speaking with other people that have experienced it is very important. Because from some of the things and some of the things Nari was saying at the time, I understand it's a very psychological condition, and it can really make you question everything. So don't suffer in silence. Reach out to Nari.
I'll be more than glad.
Send us a message. Send her a message on Instagram. You can see our details in the bio. Is that in the bit beneath, down below? And
you can email us,
whatever. And you guys can speak. So yeah. Anything else to add about your trauma? There was more trauma, by the way. This was just part one. And there were other parts to the situation, but it didn't have anything to do with hyperemesis. The hyperemesis ended around the 25th, 26th of December, thankfully, and it never really came back, although she still felt sick. But that would have taken you to what, 24
weeks?
24 weeks roughly.
Yeah.
And everyone was saying, don't worry, after 16 it goes. So some people have it throughout the whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
That sucks. That must suck. So yeah.
So yeah, this is the first part of my pregnancy story. If you have value from it, please share your comments. If you want to know more, if you've experienced it, just drop a message down there, and I'll be glad to hear from you guys if you've had it. I know I'm not alone in this. I know there's so many women out there that went through the same thing. Even if you don't have hyperemesis, but you have like severe morning sickness, please just share it with us, and I'll be more than happy to help if I can. Yeah.
Exactly. So on that note, thank you so much for listening. I hope you've got value from it. We hope you got value from it. Yeah. And like Nari said, anything you need, let us know.
Even if you're a partner and you just need to know
I'll tell you, just headphones. Do this, stroke her hair and just check your phone at the same time. Instagram, ooh.
All the back rubs.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, on that note, don't forget to like, subscribe, and definitely share if this can help someone that you know. And on that note, we'll see you next week, where we will be talking about, I don't know yet, because we make it up as we go. But maybe part 2, or maybe something else. Maybe part 2 will come later. But with that said, thanks so much, and see you next time.
Bye.